Let's do this. I want to just take about 30 seconds. I want us to quiet ourselves. I want us to quiet our spirit. In the beginning of this year, in January, I stood up in front of our church, and I said I really felt like I had a word of the Lord for not just our church, but for church in general. And that is that we all need to learn to hear from Him directly. That we need to be able to hear the voice of the Lord. And so I want to start out this morning. Let's just take 30 seconds. Let's just quiet yourself. Maybe close your eyes if that helps. Just quiet yourself and just ask the Lord what He wants you to get out of this morning. Lord, we are open to hear from you this morning. We ask that you will speak to us, that you will let us hear your voice, and that we will know that you are with us. Amen. Listen, here's what I want to start out with this morning. When it comes to the wonder of God, nobody knows enough to be certain of anything. How many of you know that God is bigger than anything we can imagine? How many of you in here have good imaginations? Your imagination is not big enough, no matter how good it is, to really comprehend or understand the Lord. In fact, I want to, on day one, God creates. He starts creating. And on day one, God creates light, separating it from darkness, calling them day and night. On day two, God creates the sky to separate the waters. Think about this. God is creating like it's never existed before. God who stands outside of time, God who is everything, who in Him all things were created, through Him all things were created. God simply begins to speak, and things that we cannot explain begin to form and begin to come into existence. And then on day three, God creates dry land, and He gathers the waters, calling the dry land earth, and gathered the water seas. He also creates vegetation. God creates the sun and moon and stars to govern the day and the night and to serve as signs for seasons, days, and years. God begins to create, and then He keeps going. On day 5, God creates creatures of the sea and winged birds, blessing them to multiply and fill the waters and the sky. And then on day 6, God creates animals to fill the earth. And then He creates us. And He creates us in His image. Think about that. How powerful is that? Turn to your neighbor and say, you were created in His image. You guys didn't do that with gusto. Let's try that again, can we? One more time. Go ahead. That's better. In Ephesians 2, chapter 2, verse 10, it says, for we are His workmanship. We are His workmanship. Do you understand? Like, out of all the things He created, He is most excited about us. Now, some of you got that, some of you didn't. I want to go through some numbers here for a moment, and I want to talk about this. So, God, we can't comprehend that there was nothing and then there was. And God created from the smallest thing that we can think about, right? The smallest possible size for anything is called the Planck length. And the Planck length is point 34 zeros and then 16. Now, in case you don't understand math, don't worry, I'm here. My wife is rolling her eyes. I should be the last guy talking about math, all right? But that is really small. In fact, it's so small that guess what? That's a guess, an educated guess. But this is what scientists have come up with. They can't see, we can't see that small, but this is what they think the smallest possible length is a Planck length. Point 34 zeros and then 16. And then, now let's talk about the speed of light for a second. The speed of light is 186,000 miles per hour. That's really fast. If you were going the speed of light, you're going to go around the earth something like 7.5 times in 1 second. That's fast. But traveling at the speed of light in 1 year, you would go 6 trillion miles. How many of you know that's a long way? 6 trillion miles. The known universe is 93 billion light years. Traveling at the speed of light, it would take you 93 billion years to get across it. That's pretty big. And 1 light year equals 6 trillion miles. So I wanted to do some math. But before we do math, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what it looks like. Because here's the thing, and we hear these numbers all the time, right? Like we hear them on TV. Our national debt is trillions of dollars. How many of you understand what a trillion is? I don't. How many of you understand what a million is? I mean, just a million. We can kind of grasp a million, right? And then we get to a billion, and things start going fuzzy. But a million, if you put it in seconds, a million seconds equals what? 11 days and 13 hours. That's 1 million seconds will work out to 11 days and 13 hours. What do you think a billion is? I think a billion is 31 years and 8 months. So think about this. The difference between a millionaire and a billionaire is a lot. What do you think a trillion is? A trillion, go ahead, is 31,710 years. Think about that. Like, those are numbers that we can't really understand. I mean, I still don't understand a trillion, although the second thing kind of helps me. Now I understand it's a whole heck of a lot. Because, again, I'm a math guy. So being a math guy, I thought, I'm going to do this. Because I know that if I multiply the numbers together here, so if I go and I multiply 93 billion light years, right? And that 1 light year is 6 trillion miles. So if I multiply 6 trillion miles by 93 billion light years, I wanted to know how many miles actually is that? Is the expanse of the known universe. How many miles is that? All right? Now, just to prove my point, why math sucks. All right? I probably shouldn't have said that word. Is that all right? Listen, here's the thing. I'm from Humboldt. And the reason I have a long beard and long hair, this is like a uniform. This is what we all look like in Humboldt. All right? So this is a uniform, and I'm going to use words that your pastor doesn't use here. I apologize in advance. All right? I'm sorry. It's just what it is. But this is why math sucks. So I multiply these together, and guess what we get? We get this. Go ahead, put it up. 5.5 E? How do you multiply numbers and all of a sudden the alphabet's showing up? Like, I know there are math people in here, and God bless you. But this number came up, and I was like, I'm not even sure what to do. So I did what everybody does. I Googled, and I said, actually, I think it was on my phone. I said, Siri, put 5.58e plus 23 in digits for me. And this is what it came up with. Now, I want you to see something here for a second. The million is in red. All right? So that's where the red starts. A million. And then you go to billion is, I don't know, what is that, pink? Yeah. Is it pink? We're going to call it pink? All right. A billion is pink, and then a trillion, and then a quadrillion, and then a quintillion, and then somehow, all of a sudden, reproduction gets involved. So, that's a lot. Again, that's why math is just crazy. It ends up with numbers and then reproduction, and I don't understand any of it. But the smallest thing, think about this, the smallest thing in the universe is something we theorize called a Planck length. The smallest thing. That's what we can theorize is the smallest measurement possible. And then the largest thing, the known universe. And you can underline known there. Known universe is 558 sextillion miles. Again, we have no idea what that is. Like, I don't think you can put that in seconds. I didn't even try. But God is concerned about everything. Now listen, here's what's cool. Everything we know, everything we see, I'm sorry about the mic. Everything we know, everything we see is just 5% of everything in the universe. And you see that we think? Science is guessing. Like, God created something and science is guessing. Now, educated guesses, I'm not putting science down. I mean, these men and women, they study hard, they work hard. It's amazing what they do. I love what they do. But it's really, at the end of it, it's kind of a guess. They don't know. But if those numbers, if the expanse of the universe, the known universe is what we think it is, and that's only 5% of what God created, that's got to make you impressed with God, right? Like, good job, God. He's got it going on. When it comes to the wonder of God, nobody knows enough to be certain of anything. No matter what you think, no matter what your imagination, no matter how big it is, nobody can understand what God has done. So the wonder of God is something that goes beyond. But listen, Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10 says, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared ahead of time for us to do." So understand this. In the midst of God creating the tiniest possible thing to the largest thing that we can't even comprehend, in the midst of all of that, he planned for you to be here right now at this time doing what he's called you to do. Think about that. You are here for a purpose. You are here for a reason. You are here and he has a plan for you. You are here and he has something in store for you that he's already thought about, that he's already prepared, that he's already put in motion. And he needs you to be part of it. God has always wanted us to partner with him. Yeah. I mean, he creates Adam, and then he creates all the animals, and what does he do? Hey, Adam, come over here and work with me and name all the animals. Come over here because I want your help in putting this together. God wants our help. If God of the universe wants your help, how important are you? Every single one of us in this room, every single person you meet on the street, every single person you meet in Windsor, God has a plan for their life. And they're vitally important to what we're doing. They're vitally important to the future of this place. That to me is amazing. That to me is the thing that we should be shouting from the rooftops in the city of Windsor. You are valued. You are wanted. You are here for a reason. You guys don't seem very excited. But let me ask you this. After everything we just talked about, what problem do you have that is too big for God? What problem do you have that's too big for God? What is the thing that you're bumping up against that you're like, oh, I just don't think God's got it? Listen, you got to get this in your head. God has a plan. God has a reason. God has a solution for everything. And we're going to talk about some of those things in just a second. In order, what time am I supposed to be done?
Don't worry about it. You're good. We're here.
Well, that's counting down. It's got 11 minutes left on it, and there is no way. Now it's got 29. That's more like it. All right. I like those guys. I like those guys. All right. But listen, in order to be able to solve the problem. So here's the thing. God has a plan for each and every one in your life. And God has a solution for any and every problem that you come upon, or any problem that anybody around you in your orbit comes into. But in order to solve that problem, you got to know how to hear his voice. You got to know what he's saying. You got to know how he speaks. You got to recognize the voice of the Lord. And we started today with saying, quiet ourselves and listen for him. Listen, I think most of the time we don't hear God's voice because we're not listening. We're not recognizing it. We're not listening, because I promise you this. The God that created the expanse of the universe has a lot to say. And he wants to talk to you all the time, constantly. So you've got to know his voice. And John chapter 8, verse 47 says, whoever is of God hears the words of God. Whoever is of God hears the words of God. But let me ask you this. It's not just limited to that. Like, can non-believers hear God? Absolutely. There's all kinds of testimonies of God going into somebody's room, waking them up in the middle of the night, and speaking to them. God can talk to anybody, anytime, through anybody, and through any time. But how does God speak to us? Through prophets. That's one way. There are people, probably in this congregation, I know in our congregation, I know in others' congregation, that work in a very prophetic manner, meaning they're hearing stuff, they're hearing from God, and they're able to get that stuff out. And so prophets are very important. But prophecy is simply a word delivered under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit that accurately communicates God's thoughts and intentions. That's all prophecy is. It's not a spooky thing. It's not a scary thing. It's not a, oh my gosh. I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in an Assembly of God church. And when I was a kid, if you had a prophet coming through, it's like I didn't want to go that day. Because I was pretty sure they were going to call out all my sins. But that's not the role of a prophet. A prophet should edify. A prophet should exhort. A prophet should help you get to the next place. That's what a prophet should do. So you hear his voice through prophets. Are we okay with that? All right. Through leaders. You guys have wonderful leaders here. God will speak to them about you. God will speak to you through them. Leaders. And leaders have a great responsibility to make sure that they're not making up stuff. I mean, as a leader, I have to be really careful with my words. I have to know if I say something to somebody like first of all, I almost never say this. I believe God told me this about you. Like, I almost never say that. But if I say it, you could better believe God woke me up, God pestered me, God had me for a long time, like, involved in this. But God will speak to you through other leaders. And sometimes as a leader, you got to learn how to handle that. Another lifetime ago, I was a plumber. I had gotten out of college. When I was in college, I would go home. I'd work for a plumber in the summer. I went to college to be a teacher. And when I got out of college, I realized, man, I could make a lot more money plumbing than I can as a teacher. So I was a plumber and new construction. And one day I'd gotten off work and I was just tired. You know, it's a hard job. I was tired. And I had to run into Kmart. You guys remember Kmart's? Some of the younger ones don't know Kmart anymore. I had to run into Kmart, and I ran into Kmart, and there was a guy that I was working with, and the Lord was telling me, you need to share with him. He'd been talking to me for a couple weeks. I want you to share this particular thing with him. And I'm like, nope. So I go to Kmart, and it's one of those things where you're walking down the row, and it's like, there he is. I'm going to go down this row. And every row I'd go down, he just magically appeared. And I kept ducking him, and I kept hearing the Lord say, I want you to share with him. And my answer, because I'm so obedient, was absolutely not. I'm tired. God, don't you understand? I had a long day. And so I finagle my way around Kmart. I don't run into him. I go up to the line to pay, and guess who's standing 2 people behind me? He is. And the Lord's like, hey, I really want you to share with him. And again, I'm like, God, I'm tired. No. Like, I said no first time. So then I'm like, okay, don't turn around. I'm just in line, just doing my stuff. Like you got to turn to do the cashier, but I'm like this. Because I don't want him to see me. I'm sure he saw me. But I didn't want to acknowledge that he saw me. So then I run out to my car, I get in my car. I mean, I'm moving like fast. I just want to get out of there. We pull up the stoplight. Guess who's right behind me? Literally right behind me. God says, I want you to share with him. Again, I'm like, absolutely not. So I go home. I'm like, God, I'm tired. We'll talk about this later because I've got some things that I need to clear up with you about you asking me to do stuff that I don't want to do. And so we'll talk about this later. So I go home. I'm in my apartment. This man has never been to my apartment ever. There's a knock on the door. His girlfriend had just moved to a new apartment. He was lost, didn't know where she was at, and accidentally knocked on my door. I open the door, you can tell my jaw hits the ground, and I'm like, I have something I need to talk to you about. God will talk to you through leaders, but you may be the leader of that situation that God wants to talk to you about or talk to you to. God can do whatever he wants to, anytime he wants to. God talks to us through friends and family. Probably nothing more annoying than God speaking to you through your family. Especially if it's your mom who's been telling you something for a long time and now the Lord's backing her up. That's annoying. God will speak to you through a small, still voice. Years ago in Eureka, we were having this massive renewal. I mean, just crazy times. And we had brought over some people from England. One of the guys that we brought over, his name was Martin Scott. Martin was a real prophetic guy. And I was the youth pastor at the time. And I grew up, like I said, in an Assembly of God church, a very conservative assembly, a very proper Assembly of God church. Like we didn't dance. We would never fall down. We would never do anything that God wanted to do was like, that's not appropriate. So that's how I grew up. And I'm in this church, and God is just breaking out everywhere. I mean, some of the craziest things I've ever seen. And Martin Scott, we're in our gym meeting at this time. We had probably 600 or 700 people there. Martin Scott's like, I'm going to pray for everybody, and Willie, you're going to be the catcher. Because you know when people fall, you don't want them to hurt themselves. So I'm the catcher. So I'm catching people, I'm putting them down. Now here's the problem. I'm the youth pastor, which means I know a lot of things about adults that their kids told me. I know a lot of secrets about parents that they don't know that I know. Because that's what teenagers do. Sorry, parents. It is what it is. And as I'm catching people, I'm really critical of what's going on. Like, I remember one guy goes down, and I catch him, I put him down. Have you guys seen people, have you seen this thing happen, praying for people where okay. And so I put him down, and here's the thought going through my mind. Stop it. I know what you were just doing last week. Your son ratted you out. You can't be having a move of the Lord. And I'm going through, and I am so critical of what's happening. I'm just in my own mind. I'm not saying it out loud. I'm just in my own mind. I've got a smile on my face. Oh, I'm glad you got touched. This is so fake. Oh, I'm glad you got touched. Wow, I'm so, and so the night is over. Like 2 hours later, the night is over. Now, here's the thing I've always done, is I've always had a heart for the Lord that said, Lord, if this is you, I'm open. If this is you, I'm good. I want it. So I prayed to the Lord that night. I just said, it's all done. Martin's walking out. He's literally walking out. My wife and I are the last people there. And I say to the Lord, I said, Lord, if this is you, you're going to have to prove it to me. Now, Martin Scott is walking out the door. And he goes like this. He goes, turns around and looks at me and starts walking straight for me. I know he just heard from the Lord, and the Lord said, go pray for Willie. Now, here's the thing. I played college football. Like, he's little. He's not going to knock me over. Like, there's no way. So he comes to pray for me, so I assume the position. Like, I get my feet down. I get my butt under me. Like, I'm ready to take a hit. Right? Like, I'm ready. There's no way this guy's going to knock me over. He comes up and puts one little finger on my head, and I'm down. I'm down. I'm in my right mind. I don't hear angels. I don't see the heavenly realm, but I'm stuck on the ground. And I try to get up, and I can't move. For 45 minutes, I am stuck, glued to the ground. At first, I'll be honest with you, again, I was a little ticked off with God. So I'm there, and I'm like, God, what is your problem right now? Like, this is ridiculous. I'm just having this conversation in my mind because I can't talk. And I'm like, what's going on? And I heard the Lord's voice that night in one of those whispers. He said to me, I will do whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do it, and you're not going to have a bad attitude about it. God will speak to you in that way. God will speak to you in a voice. God will make it clear. God will clear up all the confusions. How many of you know when I'm laying on the ground stuck, like I had no confusion about who God was at that moment. God was somebody that I didn't want to mess with. God will speak to you through dreams. How many of you have had a dream that God has spoken to you through? A couple of you? I had one of the craziest dreams that actually I've got another book coming out, hopefully within the next year. It's all about that. I don't have time because the clock keeps ticking down. I don't have time to get into that today. But it absolutely changed my life through a dream. I went to bed. As soon as my pillow hit the bed, I was in another place. And this dream went on for a long time, and I came out of it a different person. God will speak to you in dreams. So get ready. I think, and here I was praying about this earlier, I really feel like some of you are about to have your dream life interrupted by God. I really believe that. I think some of you, and when you get these dreams, tell these guys, tell your leaders. Youth, tell your youth leaders. I'm telling you, dreams are getting ready to be released. There are things that God wants to say to you that he is tired of waiting. Through visions, God will give you visions. What's the difference between a dream and a vision? A dream you're sleeping, a vision you're not. God will speak to you that way. Some of you are probably going to get some visions through pictures. God will give you pictures where you will see something, you'll see a picture, you'll get a picture in your mind, maybe you see a physical picture, maybe it's just one that you get in your mind. You know, lots of times when I've been around the prophetic and stuff, somebody will say, you know, I see this, and they'll explain a picture, and then God will move miraculously. Listen, some of you, when you see pictures, don't be afraid to tell people about those pictures. Like some of you have gotten, I promise you, some of you in this room have gotten pictures. The Lord has spoken to you through pictures. You've gotten the pictures, and you haven't shared it because you weren't sure what it meant. You don't have to know what it means. God may be speaking to somebody else through the picture he gives you, and you don't know about it until you share it. Through scriptures. How many of you know God speaks to you through the Bible? Probably the most common way for many of us. Lots of times, you know, you read the word and something, in the middle of reading the word, something jumps out at you. Listen, when it jumps out of you, grab it. Get a hold of it. All right? Make it yours, because that's the Lord speaking to you. And I will try to pick up the pace a little bit. Through random strangers. Listen, at one time, after I decided I didn't want to be a plumber anymore, thank God for that, I had an opportunity. I had two opportunities. One was to move to San Antonio, Texas, to become a young adult pastor of a large church there. And the other was to go to Los Angeles and be an offensive line coach for a junior college there. Two opportunities. Both of them I really wanted to do. But I flew to San Antonio. In San Antonio, I was like, this is definitely what I need to do. But I had the major worry at my life at that time. I'm 25 years old. The major concern was my 1966 Chrysler Newport convertible, which was the most beautiful car in the world. If I had it, I would bring it to the car show. It is a beautiful car, but you know, it gets like 10 gallons to the mile. I mean, it was a gas hog, and it was old, and you know, I had fixed it. I had done everything I needed to do, but I was really worried about this car. So I'm coming home on the plane. I'm like, all right, God, if this is you, then you're going to have to work something out with my car. Like, because I'll serve you, but we're talking about my car. I've always had a little bit of problems there. And so I'm driving home from the airport. It has a new engine, new electrical, new top, new paint, new tires, new everything, new brakes, new everything. And I get on the freeway, and I'm driving home, and all of a sudden my engine light comes on. Something's wrong with my car. Right as I'm praying, God, if this is you, you're going to have to show me. So I pull off the freeway, off an off ramp, and right into the parking lot of a little Lutheran church. And I'm like, well, that's odd, but you know, I'm going to go see if there's somebody I could figure out what's going on. And so I start walking to the office, and the pastor comes out of his office and walks towards me. And he goes, hey, can I see your car? Absolutely. So he comes, he sees it. Here's what he says to me. Now, what did I have? A 1966 Chrysler Newport convertible. This is what this pastor I've never met before says to me. You know, 20 years ago, I had a 1966 Chrysler Newport convertible that I sold to go into ministry, and it was the best decision I ever made. See, God has had to speak plain to me because I'm just a simple guy. But how many of you know, like in that moment, there was no doubt that this was God speaking. So God will speak to you through total strangers. Listen to what they're saying. Through his audible voice. God will speak to you through an audible voice sometimes. You've got to be ready for it. Through angels. We had taken over a campus in Arcata, and we were there doing work. We were remodeling. We were always there doing something. And, it was just one of those projects. And then on one Wednesday night, I was there, and it was church. And after church, I'm tired. I'm just exhausted. We've been working so hard, and I was so tired. And this guy walks in I've never seen before. But I'm a pretty big guy. I mean, I'm 6 foot. I used to be 6'1". You shrink when you get older. But I'm 6 foot. And so he's probably 6'4", 6'5", and big. And honestly, pretty scary looking. And he walks in, and this is in Arcata. You've got Arcata. 15 minutes later, you got Eureka. 20 minutes later, you got Fortuna. So Fortuna's, what's that, 35 minutes away from Arcata? He walks in, he says, hey, can somebody give me a ride to Fortuna? And again, being a good pastor, I hide. Because once again, I'm like, God, I'm tired. Are you kidding me right now? I'm not going to drive to Fortuna. So I duck around the corner, thinking, somebody will volunteer or he'll leave. One of the guys in our church says, oh, our pastor will give you a ride. And starts saying, Willy, Willy. So at the time, we were doing foster care. And so I grabbed one of our foster sons, who was 17, and I said, listen, you're going to go with me because if this guy murders me, I want to witness. And so you're going to go with me. And so we get in my truck, and Jeremy, my foster son's right behind me. You got the big guy right here, dreads all the way down. And did I mention he was just kind of belligerent? I mean, just talking crazy. So between Arcata and Eureka, there's a 50-mile-an-hour corridor, and you have to go 50. I mean, they were really strict back then. They'd pull you over in a heartbeat. And I get on that. I'm doing 85. So I'm like, I'm going to get there as fast as I possibly can before this guy murders me or something bad happens. And he's just going, talking crazy. All of a sudden, he gets quiet, and this is what he says to me. At the time, there were major fires happening down in San Diego. He says, have you seen the fires on TV? All of a sudden, he's talking different. He's clear. I said, well, yeah, of course I see the fires. He says, I want you to know, or God wants you to know, those fires are a sign to you. And he starts prophesying over me, over our church, over our region. He starts talking about things and calling out things that there's no way he knew. So now I look down and I'm going like 30. Because I'm shocked. I look at in the rearview mirror, Jeremy, our son, his eyes are like this big, and he's like, it's the craziest thing ever. I drop him off. He's great. I see him like 4 months later. He shows up in the middle of the night when I'm working on the church just to give another prophetic word. Then I never see him again. Was he an angel? I don't know. But I think there's a pretty good chance he was. I think there was a pretty good chance that God showed up that night through an angel and spoke to me. God will do whatever he wants to do. How many of you know the one that created the great expanse, the one that created the known universe, the one that created the smallest possible object we can even imagine, can speak to you any way he wants to? Through miracles. God will do miracles to speak to you. Through thoughts and impressions. Through crazy circumstances. I shared this story with these guys last night. But, my first wife had multiple sclerosis and passed away after 17 years of marriage. And it was a horrible thing. I'm not going to go into that. It was just a really hard thing. When she passed away, I had a 2-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I became a single dad and all that stuff. But before that, before she was even sick, I started seeing the number 420. 420. Now, I'm from Humboldt. I know. I get it. It wasn't the Lord telling me it was okay to smoke weed or whatever. I looked up every verse in the Bible. 420, whatever. 420 this, 420 that. And though there were some really good verses, there were some really good words, there were some really good ideas, it was nothing that jumped out and said, this is what the Lord's saying. So for years, she was sick for like 8-9 years. For years, I saw 420. Before she was sick, while she was sick, after she died, I saw 420. And what I mean by that is I would look at a clock, it'd be 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it would say 420. I'd be driving somewhere and there'd be a bumper sticker, 420, and not a marijuana sticker. Some sort of, it was like I saw 420 everywhere. I can't tell you how much I saw it. It was crazy. 420, 420, 420. So fast forward, I'm a single dad for 5 years. Now 420 has just gotten annoying. It's like, this is stupid, whatever. So fast forward 5 years, I meet Elizabeth. What actually happened is she saw me one day and said, that is the most amazing man ever. And in her mind, she said, I'm going to marry him, and then pursued me relentlessly. None of that happened. We went to the same church. I ran Bethel School of Supernatural Discipleship for 15 years. That's the sister school to BSSM in Ren. And she was part of our church and did stuff with our students. And all of a sudden, it's like one day I start noticing her. And, it's awkward. I don't want to be the creepy pastor trying to hit on single women in the church. That never works out. And so I was really careful. Didn't want to, it was just awkward. And I wasn't sure how to bridge this gap. But we ended up finally going on a date, on our first date. Now, I'd been married before. She'd been married before. Like, I'm kind of a no-nonsense guy, right? So I come with a list. Here are things I need to know about you. I pull the list out. I got things I need to know, because I'm not going to waste any time on this if it's not meant to be. So we're sitting at dinner. I ask first couple questions. I get to maybe question 3 or 4. What's your birthday? Who wants to guess? 420. As soon as she said 420, I heard the Lord say to me, now you know. Now listen, I want you to understand. God had a solution for a problem I didn't have. I didn't have a problem. My wife was healthy when I started seeing 420. I didn't need another wife. I didn't need Elizabeth at that time. But he had already prepared a way and a place for an answer I didn't know I had. Some of you, God is doing that right now. I'm telling you, right, whatever your problem is, whatever the issue is, whatever's going on in your life, God has a solution. God has an answer. But you have to begin to listen for him. You have to begin to look for it. How many of you ever bought a new car, whether new or used? You bought a car, you went after a specific car, right? And you're going to also decide, I'm going to buy this, a Toyota, a Honda Civic. Let's say Honda Civic. I'm going to buy a Honda Civic. And all of a sudden, you start seeing Honda Civics everywhere, right? Because you see what you look for. Some of you need to start looking for his voice, looking for what he wants to do, looking for what God is doing. All right, I'm going to skip that. Some of you need to start understanding who you are and that God has a plan for you. Listen, why is this important? Because I believe with all my heart we are in a fundamental, incredibly important change within the Christian church. The church cannot be what it used to be. The church can't do things the way it used to do. Things are different. There's a book written by Phyllis Tickle, The Great Emergence. Is that what? Something? Anyway. She lays out a case how the church undergoes a major radical change every 500 years. And she says we're at the beginning of another change. People don't come to church every week anymore. You know, when I grew up, every time the doors open, we went to church. Every Sunday, we were in church. Now, people come to church every 3, 4, 5 weeks, and that's it. This last Easter, I was telling these guys last night, this last Easter, our church was packed, absolutely packed. And I looked around, there were probably 3 families I didn't know. Everybody else was us. They just all came on the same day. And if they came on all, if that continued to happen, we'd have to start having 2 services. People don't do what they used to do, and they're not ever going to do what they used to do. We could sit and we can moan about it, we can complain about it, we could talk about the good old days when everybody came to church, but that's a waste of time. We have to figure out, what is God doing right now? What is he doing with us? What is he doing with church? What is he doing with people? What is he doing with us? We have to figure that out, because I'm telling you, what you do right here in Windsor right now will determine what happens here for the next 100, 200 years. That's how important this time is. You've got to understand, you were called here. You are here for a reason. You're here for a purpose. You're important. You're needed, because this is a time of change, and we need everybody involved to figure out what the change looks like. You are valuable. You are important. Say, I'm important. That was pathetic. One more time. Listen, you have to mean that. Because what you determine now, here's the thing, history will tell us if you guys got it. History will tell us if Windsor understood the change, if Windsor heard the change that was happening, if Windsor understood the change that was happening, if you guys as a congregation and the other churches in your area, if they really understood, if they really heard, if they really knew what was going. So stop worrying about the past and start focusing on what he's doing in the future. Start looking forward. Start going forward. I'm telling you guys, this is one of those things, my heart is burning with this. My spirit is burning with this. What the church does right now will determine whether or not we exist. You understand that? This is important. I meet with a group of pastors on Friday. I am closing. I meet with a group of pastors every Friday. We meet in our cafeteria. And we were sitting around, probably every pastor there is at least in his late 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s. And we just get together and we talk, and whatever comes to mind. There's usually 12, 14, 15 of us. And we're talking, and we start talking about the change, this whole change, and what's going on with church, how church is different. The Easter thing and everything I just talked about, how things are different. And so one of the pastors says, well, because we were talking about, what is it going to take to reach this generation? What is it going to take to carry the church on to the next place? And so one of the pastors says, well, I wish we had some 20-year-olds here. I said, give me 5 minutes. I called my daughter. Her and her boyfriend showed up 5 minutes later, and they sat down, and we just began to ask them questions. What does church look like for you? Why don't you do this? Why don't we were just peppering them with questions. And you know what? The more we asked, the more we learned. It was like they have a heart for the Lord. Like you realize they're not saying no to God. They're just saying no to the way we do things. Like their heart is there. Their heart is beating. Their heart is alive for them, for the Lord. Their heart, they want to be. In fact, my daughter who was there, she decided one night to do a worship thing. Now, we're experimenting. We're trying to do things different. We're trying to do all kinds of things. And our worship pastor did a worship thing for young adults, and 3 people showed up. And she's great at worship. Mariah calls me one night at 9 o'clock at night and says, actually, she texted me. Nobody calls anymore. She texted me, and she says, Dad, some friends want to get together and go worship. Is that okay? Of course it's okay. She's got keys. She could do, So she goes. I don't go. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm old. I'm already in bed. Next day I asked her, I said, how was it? She goes, oh, it was awesome. How many people showed up? Oh, 30, 35. What? Well, how long were you there? I think we left at midnight. Wait, you were there for 3 hours worshiping? Do you hear that? Their heart is for the Lord. They want what God has. We just have to figure out how to give it to them in the way they'll take it. I mean, her and her boyfriend both said to me, listen, if you weren't here, we wouldn't be at church at 10:30 on a Sunday morning. We're going to sleep in. All of their friends sleep in. So maybe we need to change. We're looking at doing a service maybe at 9 o'clock at night. I won't be there. I'll be long gone. But I don't need to be there. We've got to let it go. We've got to release it to the next generation. We've got to let them be who they're supposed to be and do what they're supposed to do. And in order for us to do that, we have to start hearing his voice clearly.